Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. One small ambush may not be a big deal, but a series of small terror attacks can create fear and unrest. This is what we've been seeing in the Jammu region over the past month. The Kathua attack is the 7th attack in just a month. It comes at a time when normalcy is returning to Jammu and Kashmir. The recent general elections witnessed nearly 60% of the people voting. The trend in the past couple of decades suggests that whenever terror is on a decline, Pakistan's deep state switches tactics. There could be gaps in our counter-terror insurgency grid in Jammu because troops were shifted to handle the hot situation at the LAC. Now, the question we're asking this evening are, will these attacks spread out of Jammu? And what can the security forces devise, a plan to thwart such attacks? Joining me to discuss this are Sheshpal Vaid, former DGP Jammu and Kashmir Police, Colonel Nikhil Apte, an Indian Army veteran, defense analyst, and my colleague Aditya Rajkaul here in the studio with me. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. I want to start by asking DGP Vaid this question. Why, DGP Vaid, these attacks now? The timing is everything. Why June, July of 2024?
Namaskar. The kind of response you saw in the parliament election, more than 50% polling was there.
Yes.
Then a country, your neighbor, dubious neighbor, which has never allowed democracy and freedom to its own people, will not like this, as per Supreme Court order, also Honorable Prime Minister has announced the assembly elections are due. I think the choosing of timing is very, very appropriate. Now, let me mention here one small incident. I was a young SP, and I recall in the early 90s when terrorism was spilling over from Kashmir Valley to this side of Pir Panchal, to
Yes.
Jammu region. I'm talking of early 1990, 91, 92. It spread to Doda district, the erstwhile Doda district, today Doda, Kishtwar, Ramban, and all these hilly areas.
Yes.
And on 3rd December 1993, an attack took place in district Udhampur, in Basantgarh area of Udhampur district. Exactly the place where yesterday attack took place in Basantgarh area, a police post was attacked. At that time, it spread panic in Jammu region that terrorists have reached, which earlier was thought that it is limited to Kashmir, have reached so close to Jammu.
Yes.
Can you imagine? I hope by narrating this incident, you can imagine the terror in the minds of people, the fear in the minds of people by these series of attacks which have happened in a recent 1 month or so. That is the seriousness of this situation. I think we should come out with very detailed action plan and counter these.
Yes, absolutely.
attacks.
A well-detailed action plan is the need of the hour. Aditya, you're plugged into the security networks. Tell us what the security forces believe is going on right now over the last 1 month. What are they talking? What are your sources telling you?
You know, Sandeep, the larger point is, of course, that Kashmir is completely choked ever since 2019.
Right.
Everything that was possible from the security framework, from the political framework, freedom was given to the security forces.
Yes.
And they applied their mind, they applied their strategy, and terrorists have been reduced completely.
Right.
Top commanders have been killed.
Right.
Terror organizations have been eliminated completely in the
Yes.
Kashmir Valley. So they don't have a breathing space
Right.
entirely.
Right.
That's why they resorted to hybrid terrorism.
Yes.
In Jammu, they are opening a new front.
Right.
Not that Jammu didn't see terrorism.
Yes.
Jammu has seen terrorism, but not as brutal
Yes.
and as consistent
Yes.
as we have witnessed in the Kashmir Valley.
Right.
So what's happening right now? There are 7 attacks that take place in a period of less than 35 days.
Yes.
There are killings of 9 civilians and 6 to 7 security forces personnel, many others injured.
Right.
And the most horrific aspect that many haven't discussed, and this is top sources that are telling me,
Right.
that they fear that there is a group of 15 to 16 terrorists.
15 to 16 terrorists.
15 to 16 terrorists who have entered,
Right.
perhaps to the international border. That's a debate, how they really
Right.
entered, because they have been found in one of the upper reaches of this
Right.
entire region, and they forced an old lady in one of the villages to cook a meal for them.
Right.
And 6 to 7 kgs of dal was used in that entire, meal. Just rotis and 6 to 7 kgs of dal. Now, I don't believe that 3 to 4 terrorists would consume 6 to 7 kgs of dal.
Of dal.
And that has really, questioned of course, the intelligence and the security grid,
Yes.
but also fear of further such attacks in the next few weeks. Also, even as we speak right now, Sandeep, there's a meeting that's going on at Kathua between the Punjab police and the J&K police, because there are fears
Right.
that which kind of route are
Right.
these terrorists taking,
Yes.
and where are they then taking shelter. And I would remind you, in
Yes.
2019, I found out when I went to Kathua and all this region, through the international border, there were tunnels that were
Right.
not just used for weapons and drugs,
Yes.
but terrorists were using to infiltrate and exfiltrate.
Exfiltrate. Yes.
A very prominent terrorist of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, Sandeep, Ashik Nengru,
Yes.
was responsible for not just couriering people, giving them OGW support,
Yes.
but helping the entire modus operandi of terrorist attacks.
Right.
He was responsible for a lot of terror attacks in Jammu belt,
Yes.
but then exfiltrated and is coordinating attacks now for Jaish-e-Mohammed from sitting in Pakistan.
Right. I mean, it was shocking indeed. And let's not forget, Aditya, that the Pulwama attackers also used tunnels to infiltrate and come in through the Jaish-e-Mohammed attackers.
And one more point I'll make,
Yes.
Sandeep, is that, there are multiple challenges.
Right.
One is, of course, in the last 3 to 4 years, a lot of our security forces have been moved out.
Yes.
From there to
the LAC.
To the LAC.
Yes.
Of course,
An entire light division has been moved out.
Exactly. So I'm not questioning the
Yes.
morale or
Right.
the strategic abilities
Yes.
or the mindset of the
Right.
forces. Of course, they're always there. But have we
Yes.
taken well-calibrated calls to
Right.
counter this? One. And secondly, the other challenges are that devices that are being used
Yes.
are not the conventional means.
Right, absolutely.
There are
Yes.
Chinese encrypted apps that are being used that
Yes.
cannot be cracked very easily. And it's not wireless communication, it's not just normal VPN.
It's
that's being
hybrid
used.
com
So
sets.
this is
yes.
a major challenge, and
Right.
overall we will of course discuss Pakistan later.
Yes.
But Asim Munir's tenure ending and he
Right.
coming back again is a
Yes.
major challenge, and
He
wants
needs
to
an
show.
extension.
He
Yes.
wants to show
Right.
that there are killings happening in J&K. J&K's proxy war is continuing.
Colonel Apte, on this, because he just wrote a very detailed piece on, analyzing this and in the print. Colonel Apte, tell us your sense of what is going on right now. Aditya just said something really scary. Groups of 15 and 16 terrorists crossing over. These are like cricket-sized teams of terrorists. I mean, we haven't heard of these numbers crossing in a very long time. I mean, it was just 2 and 3s. And now if they're coming in large numbers, obviously they're on to something. They found a new route. But tell us, what do you think, how these large numbers are coming in? Have they found a new route? Are they using the old routes? What's your sense on what we are seeing now?
Thanks, Sandeep. Absolutely, what Aditya brought up. There are these large numbers coming in, and the routes are the same. International border has been fenced. However, it continues to be less, or rather more prone to infiltration than what is there on the line of control. Usually, this was a tactic which was used way back, I think, late 90s and early 2000s, when the terrorists used to infiltrate from these rivers, Date, Basantar rivers, etc.,
Right.
reach the national highway, and then they would have 3 options. One of the options was, and that continues to the day, was to get help of an overground worker and move by a vehicle or any other means towards Riyasi. The second option was, in case ISI so calibrated it, was to move towards either civilian or military targets in and around Jammu. We have seen such incidents around Dinanagar and also Sanjwan. And the third option was, since Doda, Bhadarwa, these areas were very cut off for their earlier infiltration routes to come in through the north, they would actually trek a long time towards the east, reach this area of Bani Machedi, and then go northwards towards Bhadarwa. This area is sparsely populated, dense jungles, very less forces deployed there, being in the depth. So this was the kind of modus operandi that was used, and I fear that this is again, we see that since they have been choked in the north,
Yes.
this is something that they are resorting to again.
Going into the soft underbelly. But Colonel Apte, your piece also mentioned that you were worried that these attacks could spill into the hinterland as well. And we are very conscious of what happened in 2015 and 16 with the Dinanagar and the Pathankot airbase attack. Do you see a possibility of this happening? Because as you can see on the map there, Haryana, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, these are states that haven't dealt with terrorism. They're all around Jammu and Kashmir, especially Jammu. What is the danger that these states, that terrorists could actually infiltrate into these states and conduct, these kind of hit and run attacks there?
Absolutely, Sandeep, with you on this. There is no question in my mind whether it would happen or whether it can happen. We need to look at it from 2 points of view. One is capability and one is intent. As far as capability goes, we are very clear that ISI or GHQ does hold the capability to carry out terrorist attacks, not only in the near vicinity of where they are right now, but possibly also in the hinterland of India. As far as intent goes, of course, all the things that Aditya mentioned hold true. I would also like to add that another reason is that TTP and Taliban are really giving Pakistan a hard fight on the Western Front. And it is a good ploy for the Pakistan army, especially when the chief is looking at an extension of a tenure, to showcase that India remains the priority number one, the enemy number one, and they are able to execute strong operations in India and especially against Indian army. At a slightly higher, or I would say a more deeper level, if you try to analyze why is Pakistan doing what it is doing now, one of course is a backdrop of the elections we have had and the kind of mandate we have got, and trying to puncture the narrative that our government has set up, and rightly so, that things have slowly got back to normal. But if you look at it the other way, then Pakistan has more and more become isolated in the world opinion. US is not giving it aid that it was giving it earlier. Saudi and Middle East have also put it a little afar from where it was. And recently, when the visits of Pakistan Prime Minister and the chief to China hasn't yielded much. In fact, one of the key projects of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a railway line, has been put on hold. So all in all, I think Pakistan feels, isolated. They feel that they are no longer on a table of any kind.
Right.
And their threat of being a man with a nuclear gun to its head has been called out by India and other countries.
Right, absolutely.
So this is, I feel, their construct to, put Kashmir back on the map, put India get on a difficult wicket, get limelight in the world arena.
Absolutely.
And then possibly negotiate a better loan.
So that's the Pakistan deep state for you, forever in negotiations with big powers outside, using terror as a tool of diplomacy. But DGP Vaid, these 2 points that Colonel Apte mentioned, capability and intent that the Pakistani deep state has possessed for many years, but now that they have deployed it in Jammu, in a region that was fairly unguarded in the last couple of years, do you fear that these attacks could spread out of Jammu into the hinterland, like other states like Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, very close to where they have infiltrated, around Jammu?
See, I have no doubt about their intent. They may be down temporarily, economically, but as I understand Pakistan's deep state, they run biggest drug cartel of the world, and there is no dearth of money for terrorism. And once they are able to infiltrate inside, they can strike anywhere in India, whether it is Haryana, Punjab, other Delhi or other places, and it has happened earlier also. We have seen in late 90s and early 2000 Parliament attack, Akshardham attack, your Ram Mandir attack. Now, the shift to Jammu, as I understand, is threefold. It's serving threefold purpose of the deep state of Pakistan. Number one, puncture the narrative that things have improved after Article 370. After getting choked, as Aditya was saying, in Kashmir, because security grid in Kashmir is very, very robust, and they have very little scope of doing major incidents. So puncture this narrative because Jammu, the troops were depleted after it had seen peace for last more than 15 years. Number two is seeing the spread of the forces from Kashmir and Ladakh. China is partner in this, as I understand, because India is eyeball to eyeball deployment in Ladakh and also Kashmir. They are seeking spread of the forces from these two regions to Jammu region. Jammu region are largely hilly compared to Kashmir Valley, which is plain. Less connectivity in Jammu. Kashmir Valley, every village is connected. That is not true of Jammu. It's a largely hilly and there is one or two roads. The one village on this mountain top, the other village on other mountain top. That's why the concept of VDC was there, because everywhere police forces could not reach. And these VDCs could hold on for 3, 4, 5 hours till reinforcement could reach. I think we have to. My personal view is the time has come that Pakistan should be now dealt with. We can't. I think patience of people is going. You can't allow them to not only disturb whole. You see the way arc of terrorism is spreading from. Initially, they started from Rajouri Punch, last 1.5 years, then Riyasi, then it happened in Hiranagar, Kathua. You saw how what Aditya was saying, a larger group crossed. I had the information about the larger group crossing, and that actually had an encounter with a VDC in Basantgarh area of Udhampur. And VDC member got martyred. After that, this group went towards Doda, Bhadrawa area, where it split into 3-4 groups. And that's what you are seeing. One incident in Bilawar Tahsil of Kathua, Mashedi area, another in Gando, the third one in Bhadrawa area. I think that's what you are witnessing. And you need to go after these people. Important operations.
Absolutely. This is very alarming indeed, DGP Ved, what you just said. The fact that, and we know this from history, that that's how the Pakistan deep state functions. They keep testing your patience with your boundaries, and they just look, they keep probing and probing and probing. And that's what we're witnessing now, Aditya. They're slowly pushing into Jammu, and this is the reason that we should be on guard for these terror attacks to expand through Punjab and possibly to Himachal Pradesh as well.
No doubts about that, Sandeep. Pakistani deep state and the, these proxy actors are changing their tactics. And especially the kind of terrorism that we have seen over the last more than 3 decades, that's not visible anymore. The kind of proxy war is completely changed. I mean, look at the killing of the 9 Hindu pilgrims that happened, I think, on the 9th of June, 9th of, last month.
Last month, yes.
And that was exactly when the swearing-in ceremony was happening. It was a message that the proxy war continues, we need to get international headlines, and that will be the best time for them to show to the world that terrorism is very much active in Jammu and Kashmir.
Absolutely, and it must have the fact that you had over 60% turnout in the Lok Sabha polls would have really frightened the deep state.
And add to that a very successful Amarnath Yatra that's happening right now. I'm told that more than 2.5 to 3 lakh pilgrims have already in fact been there. But as DGP Ved actually mentioned, the fear is real. We have a couple of colleagues here in the newsroom from Jammu, and they've been asking me since the last 1 week that what's happening in Jammu, what are the details, is terrorism actually reaching our doorstep? And that's a concern. They haven't asked me about Kashmir the same way in the last many days or weeks or months. So I think there is a genuine fear, and I've been in touch with top officials. They have been meeting, and I'm sure that a tough response would be given. But, there's been a complete airy calm in the last 1 month. My question is that, we speak a lot against terrorism, but costs need to be imposed. If you don't have a tough response, only words will not do.
Words won't do.
You need to have a well-calibrated response.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask Colonel Apte about that well-calibrated response. What is it going to be? The fact that we have a ceasefire in place along the LOC, that would definitely have taken off a lot of the options that the Indian Army had in the past to, impose some kind of punishment on the Pakistan Army. But now you have a ceasefire that's holding for about 4 years now. What are the options really, Colonel Apte, for the Indian Army, the Indian state to respond to these multiple acts of terror in Jammu?
What Indian state does not do and cannot do is have proxy actors or non-state actors do what Pakistanis do in India.
Right.
So the only response or only strength that we have
Yes.
is our conventional capability, especially when we are deployed along the LC or the international boundary in Jammu area. There was a ceasefire way back in 2003 November, which lasted for a few years, and it slowly deteriorated into a spectrum of almost artillery duels restarting.
Yes.
And that is the time when, again, Pakistan came up with this request of a ceasefire. I think it's time to let that be. Whether we recognize the ceasefire or not is a moot point. But what's required is a robust and a strong military response to Pakistan on LC. There needs to be cost imposed on Pakistan.
DGP Vaid, a robust and resolute military response to the Pakistan Army on the LOC. What's your view on this? How should the state respond to these acts of terror?
I think India will definitely respond in a manner and timing of its choosing, and I think that decision has to be taken at the topmost level in Delhi. I am sure the policy makers in Delhi must be thinking about various options, and cost has to be made very heavy for Pakistan. You can't allow how long our civilians will get killed, our army men will get killed, our policemen will get killed. I think there is a limit, and we have tolerated enough.
Yes.
Let's see once for all.
Absolutely. We have a limit. That limit seems to have been crossed, as our experts have told us this evening. Jammu attacks, will they spread? That's been the worry, because the Pakistan deep state, as we've seen in the past, has a habit of probing our thresholds, and this is what they did in 2015 and 16 before the surgical strikes, and of course that very famous attack on Balakot by the Indian Air Force. Has that moment come? Our experts believe this is the time now. But that's a story we'll be tracking very closely, because what happens in Jammu and Kashmir can't be taken lightly, because terror and the deep state have a habit of pushing attacks through the Indian hinterland. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Thank you very much, DGP Vaid, Colonel Apte, and my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul. The Centre and the NTA in their Supreme Court affidavits have claimed there were no major paper leaks during the NEET exam. What happened were only localized cases. But the controversy around the exam process raises questions on the sanctity of the pen and paper exam method. Now, interestingly, the NTA also conducts the IIT entrance exams, but leaks are never reported in these premier engineering exams. What are the methods used in the IIT exams that ensures there is no controversy, and what can NTA learn from these exams? Well, to discuss this with me, I have this evening V. Ram Gopal Rao, Group Vice Chancellor, BITS Pilani, and former Director of IIT Delhi, Dr. C.V. Sharma, Educationist and Professor of Education, IGNOU, and in the studio I have with me my colleague Justin Thomas. Justin, over to you first. You've been researching this story on the NEET for the past week. How is it that you have the same exam body, the NTA, conducting both the IIT exams and the NEET exams, and yet you don't have leaks in the IIT, and there are leaks galore, it seems, in the NEET exams?
Exactly. So, when it comes to the IIT exams, the major difference between IIT and NEET is that the IIT is the computer-based exams,
Right.
which means that everything is online, everything is happening by the system. IIT has tied up with TCS to provide the systems. So, the challenges that may be different for the online exams, but the major challenge that the pen and paper exam based was that there were a lot of options during the process from the question paper is started till it reaches the exam center and the preparation until the scanning process for the results are gone. There are multiple points where these question paper can be leaked or the answer sheets can be compromised. So that's the difference where NTA is facing, because in the IIT exam also, the IIT board itself handles a lot of its part, including the advanced exams and all the general exams. So when it comes to NEET, it's the sole authority, and also the fact that it is not autonomous, it doesn't really have those real powers that UGC would really have.
Absolutely. Let's ask Mr. Ramgopal Rao this. Mr. Rao, how is it that the NTA conducts these exams, the NEET exams? It's leaking all the time, it looks like, whereas the IIT exams, there's absolutely no problem with the G. What is it that the IIT does differently?
I also think NEET needs to do things a little bit differently. A sort of a two-stage exam like IITs.
Yes.
In the IIT exam, the first level JEE mains is conducted by NTA, and that's conducted for about 12 lakh students.
Right.
And so that there is still marking and all that because for 12 lakh students you cannot do an online exam today. The online you can do maximum for about 2 lakh students.
Right.
But then they conduct it, multiple sessions and all of that and do some normalization. But and then what IITs do is take about 2 lakh students out of this JEE mains and then conduct a separate exam, which is completely computer based, a single time examination.
Right.
That is the advanced examination. So that is what eventually needs to happen. So the NEET exam also needs to be, there is a NEET mains and then there is a NEET advanced.
Right.
The NEET advanced exam can actually, be used for, needs to take, let's say 2 lakh or 2.5 lakh students from the NEET mains, which can be an objective exam conducted, let's say some 20 times, over 2 months kind of a period, completely on. And then, out of those students, you pick up those who have got above a certain cutoff and then conduct for a more thorough exam, which is organized by AIMS themselves. The difference in the case of IITs is the JEE advanced is completely conducted by IITs. There is no role of NTA at all. And because IIT conducted, there is a lot of seriousness that goes into that exam. The faculty involvement is very high. The entire exam is conducted by the faculty. And I think that's a kind of the high stakes involved in that exam, the reputation of IITs and 23 IITs sitting together, making all the decisions, for example, giving grace marks and all of that. That kind of a process in IITs would have been, such a thoroughly evaluated kind of a process.
Absolutely.
Not somebody giving some grace marks to some students based on some Supreme Court ruling. That would never have happened in the JEE advanced exam, which is completely conducted by the IITs. I think it needs to move to a two-level kind of an exam, like in the IIT or the JEE process. I think that will solve many of these problems.
Needs a relook, a two-stage exam, as Mr. Ramgopal Rao has said. But Dr. Sharma, how will this two-stage exam be implemented for NEET? You think it's the need of the hour? And how will it be conducted?
Look, what I believe is that we really need to have a relook at the NEET exam and reassess the performance. The NEET exam is organized in one go because of the Supreme Court order that came in 2019 or so. The Supreme Court said that you will have only one exam for admission to all medical college, including private medical colleges. So no college is holding its own exam. You will remember in the past, there were many colleges, many institutions which had their own exams. So the Supreme Court will have to review its order. The government in turn should review how it happened, why it happened, and approach the Supreme Court, because now the government also doesn't have the option to hold many exams or two-stage exam. I am quite in favor of two-stage exam, but as I said, Supreme Court will have to do that. Second is that, look, there are more students appearing for medical colleges, and you have already mentioned this, that there are only about 1,20,000 seats in medical colleges. So it becomes a very high stake exam, and every time, very large number will definitely not be considered for admission. So that number is crucial, and that makes all the difference. Third, what I believe is the leaking. It's not rampant, it's not nationwide. It's on small scale, localized, and what I call is, it's a criminal conspiracy.
Right.
It's not leak, it's a criminal conspiracy between a couple of people, and in some locations, in this case, Godhra or Patna or Hazaribagh,
Yes, yes.
that looked into through the criminal perspective and
Right.
not really calling a leak.
Yes.
Unfortunately. I have mentioned one fact, and which I will mention again, that last time all this happened because the parliament was to meet and the
Yes.
elections had taken place.
Right.
I had said 4th July, everything will die down. You will see the dwindling of the debate on NEET.
Right.
Again, parliament is coming on 22nd August.
Yes.
Let us not make it a political issue. We need to look into it from the academic perspective and find a good assessment process for it.
Right, absolutely, and that seems to be the larger aim, of course, to find a process to fix the examination systems and keep it free of politics. But Justin, do you agree with what Dr. Sharma was saying, that these are localized leaks, and the fact that there seems to be some politics involved here because the Parliament being in session and all of that.
But that's politics is obvious. That's because that's their opposition's job to raise issues
like
which matters, resonates with, and NEET being such an exam which touched so many middle class families
Yes.
across the country,
Yes.
and also a lot of people, aspiring people who are trying to get into a good life. So that resonates with the opposition for them to take it out.
Right.
But at the same time, there needs to be if we say it's a localized issue,
Right.
the CBI probe is going on right now. It's being hinted as a localized thing. So we have to wait a bit more, and not but at the same time the students are demanding, they are making a lot of noise.
Right.
But whether the court will agree to that or not, we'll come to know in the next few days.
Absolutely, and the ball is back in the court of the Supreme Court, if you can say that, because 18th July is when the Supreme Court meets again, convenes on this very same issue, and the fact that it was a Supreme Court verdict that actually forced the government to hold one single examination. You see a possibility of the Supreme Court kind of reversing that verdict and going back to what Dr. Rao was suggesting.
That's highly because the logistics involved in having a
Two-stage examination?
re-exam right now in this
Right,
year itself
yes.
will be humongous. So
Yes.
that I don't think the system is prepared for that. System wasn't prepared for 2.4 million at the first go.
Yes.
How is that possible again? So it unlikely that Supreme Court orders a re-NEET, but definitely what is expected that they are going to pull up the NTA and the government
Yes.
to ensure that this is not repeated.
Right.
Because that is very important, because you have so many families, people
Yes.
involved, their lives involved, future involved, and you cannot take that lightly because such cases come.
Right, absolutely. So it's a very difficult decision that the Supreme Court will have to take, as Mr. Rao mentioned. The ball is back in the court of the Supreme Court on the 18th of July. What do you think, Mr. Rao, that the court could actually decide? Will it call for a re-NEET, or will they actually say it was a localized thing and it should be dealt with? It's a very they're on a razor's edge here.
Yeah, I think, but I think going by the IIT Madras report, where they seem to have analyzed the data from all the centers, a large number of centers, and compared the results this year from the previous year, and then seem to have concluded based on data that it's primarily because of the reduction in the syllabus, which
Yes.
has resulted in so many students getting those high marks. That's what the IIT Madras data seems to be suggesting. I think if court goes by that data, then there may not be any re-examination. That's my impression right now. But then if somebody questions that data, I haven't looked at it carefully, how much of analysis has gone into that. But if somebody questions the data itself, then
Yes.
probably Supreme Court might have another round of collection of data and analysis and all that, and the decision can go either way. But I think whatever it is, we need to decide quickly. I
Yes.
think the students are waiting. The academic year is already getting delayed.
Yes,
I think
the clock is ticking. Yes, absolutely. Dr. Sharma, what do you think that Supreme Court will say exactly a week from today? It's a tough choice before them. And 2.4 million families are literally looking at the Supreme Court today, and they're in, their lives hang in the balance.
No, very correct. The Supreme Court will rely on the data given to them and the
Yes.
report of the CBI or investigating agency. But what I believe, is that the government should immediately get research done. What we are saying is that all such exams have become very high-stake exams.
Yes.
Now, there are two aspects of it. One is the law, the other is the fear of the punishment. If the fear of the punishment is not severe, then you tend to break law. And I think this is happening in this case. The stake is very, very high.
Yes.
I mean, you should realize those who did this in Bihar clearly shows they are not afraid of the law. They are not afraid of the police. Two
Yes.
things I will suggest: get a good research study done from your institutions, your universities, your IIT or whichever.
Right.
How can we have an alternative system, because this is not working? When the
Yes.
Supreme Court gave its judgment that there should be one exam, that was very justified.
Right.
I have heard the director of AIMS telling, I had personally run to 7-8 cities to write my exam, and I missed a couple of exams because I couldn't cope with all the exams. That
Right.
should not happen again. Let us not misinform the Supreme Court that your decision was wrong. Its decision was very justified,
Right.
because so many poor students could not appear for the exam because there were multiple exams. So we
Right.
should not put pressure on Supreme Court through our discussions on such platform,
Right.
which I am sure the government as well as the Supreme Court hears. We must say good judgment that there should be one exam, but how it should be conducted, that must be looked into. We must do a research on what we have done in the past and come up with an alternative, which we must suggest to the Supreme Court.
Absolutely.
Let us not throw the baby with the bathwater,
Right.
because this was a good judgment. And let us also put pressure on the government, which I'm
Yes.
sure it is doing. I mean, what I hear and I see, and the minister all the time giving their statement, the government is very particular about it, and it is taking tough decisions. So, what I would say, make the law more tougher and give quick punishment.
Absolutely.
Because people get restless.
Right.
And then the belief in the government falls and dwindles.
Yes, absolutely. The exemplary punishment needs to be given out in this case. And Justin, as Dr. Sharma was saying, that it's a high stakes game, and that's the reason that people are willing to go to the lengths that they did across the country. You have these small gangs of organized leakers, if you can call them that, who've kind of tried to pilfer out all those papers in that graphic that you put together for us. But tell us what the Supreme Court could really be looking at now. Is it a reform of the exam system that they could suggest, or will they just keep it confined to this year's NEET 2024?
I think the spotlight is definitely on NTA right now.
Right.
How NTA should go about conducting future exams, I think that's the focus that Supreme Court is going to take.
Yes.
Because what has happened right now, and from the reports that are coming in, it suggests it's localized. But the question is, should it happen in the local itself?
Right.
That's the point that the
And a
Supreme Court
localized thing in an interconnected world?
How NTA conducts the exams, what's the process?
Yes.
Do they have the personnel to conduct the process, and do they have the powers in the first place? Because
Yes.
NTA is it's not an autonomous body. It reports to the government, to the
Right.
ministry, specifically ministry. So does ministry needs to be so hands-on on this, or NTA needs to be given more powers to
More
ensure
autonomy.
to ensure that they are able to conduct exams
these
properly?
are-
And the
yes.
buck stops with the NTA. Right now, it's like either NTA, it's government is going around like that.
A lot of finger pointing, and that's the neat mess that we are discussing today. And it's over to the Supreme Court, which sits in on decision most likely on the 18th of July. But thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Ram Gopal Rao, Dr. Sharma, and my colleague Justin Thomas, for that burning issue of the NEET mess and what lessons we can learn for a better leak-proof examination system.